Hi friends. So, you've got a fuel pump or a water pump that's a little leaky? I've got a solution for you. You don't have a fuel pump or a water pump for your classic vehicle. I probably got a solution for that too. Well, I'm just going to buy a kit and I'm going to rebuild it myself. I got a better solution for you. My name's Mark. I'm from Let's Go Car Cruising. I'm out here at AG Rebuilders and I'm going to show you the process of fuel and water pump rebuilding. Let's go inside and take a look. Hey Parker.
Hey Mark, how's it going?
Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by today.
AG Rebuilders, tell us a little bit about that side of the business.
So AG Rebuilders is our fuel and water pump division where we rebuild mechanical fuel pumps and water pumps. Fuel pumps pretty much started becoming a commonplace in about 1928, and we do them from the beginning till about when they went to the crimp style, which is roughly late 60s. And then water pumps, pretty much we've done them as early as 1901 all the way up into the 80s. So water pumps a little larger range of rebuilding capabilities. Fuel pumps a little bit smaller, but still 28 to mid 60s is still quite a bit.
Okay.
So that's what we do. We rebuild both those types of pumps here in the AG Rebuilder shop.
Cool. Well, let's go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing we do when we get a package in, primarily most of our business is mail order, is we check the pump in. We inspect the pump when we take it out of the box, make sure it A, made it here in one piece, B, it is what it in fact says it is. If there's any special instructions given to us by the owner of the vehicle, we make a note of those, we check it in, we tag it, we have a tagging system, and then the pump goes on deck.
Okay.
And then it's first come, first serve. As they come in, whichever pump's been here the longest is going to be the first one done in queue. So
Sure.
This time of year is a great time of year, but of course, naturally, as it's getting warm here in New England, within the next month, it'll start being, 10 to 15 pumps a day rolling through the door, and then we start getting backed up where next thing you know, your rebuild might be a few weeks out. But
Okay.
this time of year is a great time of year to get them in because it's not terribly backed up.
So, a key part for me is I'm getting my original pump back.
Right. This is not an exchange program. You send us your pump, that's the pump that we're rebuilding, and that's the pump you're going to get back. We have had guys call us up and say they want to get an extra pump maybe to take in the trunk on a long rally or a tour. And a lot of times we can accommodate that. We do have thousands of cores in stock, not rebuilt, but they are cores. That's why I call them cores. And we are able to sometimes satisfy that. Obviously there's the really rare and obscure stuff that we don't have the spares of. There weren't many of them made in the first place. But a lot of times we do try to, if somebody does want a spare or a backup, or say somebody's got a pump, but it's fell off the truck and it's broken in half, maybe the half that's broken we have. We do keep not only whole pumps, but parts of pumps. If the casting is still good, we'll keep it around. So a lot of times we can kind of Frankenstein a pump together if yours
Sure.
is broken or damaged or whatnot. So yeah, we do it. It never hurts to ask. That's what I always tell everybody. Just ask because we might have it.
Okay.
You
So
just never know.
folks, I'll put a link up to their website in the description of the video, and you can check them out.
Absolutely.
All right.
So
Well,
this is our check-in area where we take the pumps in, but come on into the shop. So in the machine shop area here, you can see we've got pretty much the provision of every type of part for a fuel and water pump on hand, as well as our die cutter that makes us all of our custom gaskets for all the various pumps that we rebuild.
Okay.
And pretty much, like I said, the first process when we get a pump in here is we're going to unbox it, inspect it, put it in the queue. Once the time comes up that your pump comes to getting onto the bench is when we start tearing it down and the rebuild process begins. Some pumps take as little as 45 minutes. Some pumps take 3 hours. It all depends. And obviously it also depends on the condition too. We've had pumps come in where the threaded holes are stripped out and we're putting thread insert repairs into every single hole to repair, over tightened housings. We've had warped housings come in. We've had bent arms. A lot of pumps run, the fuel pumps anyways, they run on the camshaft, but some have a push rod that actuates the arm as well. So we've seen the gamut of damaged pumps as well as pumps that are actually in great shape and go back together pretty quickly. Greasy pumps, clean pumps, they come in all different types.
So it's not just I'll go buy a kit and I'll rebuild it in my garage type of thing.
No, and that's one thing people ask us a lot is if we sell kits, and we don't. And I'll explain that why as we get into the rebuilding process, why we don't have kits. That's a whole different level of angst that I don't think any of us here want to deal with. But send us your pump and we can rebuild it. And you'll see exactly what I mean by with kits, because we pretty much kind of make everything here.
Sure.
So just for example here, Jason's got just a quick sample, excuse me, of,
Hi, Jason.
How are you?
So, this is a Pontiac?
That's a Buick.
Buick, excuse me. Buick pump that came in, and this is a example of a not terrible pump. We've had pumps that come in that are just caked with oil and grease and grime. This one's actually pretty clean for our world. But you can see the old mounting gasket is kind of glued on here and petrified. The glass bowl clearly had some sediment that's kind of hazed over the glass. You can see somebody got some overspray on it. A lot of times when they come in like this is actually not terribly dirty. This is actually pretty good. Another thing we always inspect is also we want to make sure threads for inlet and outlet threads are not damaged. If we can chase the threads, we will, but if they've been stripped, this is die cast aluminum. If it's stripped out and we can't chase the threads, we'll go to our inventory out in the back and look to see if we have a better housing with better threads and try to replace the housing rather than try to spend too much time trying to repair threads that are irreparable. And we don't want a customer to have a leak either.
No, that would be a bad day.
Yeah. So this is one Jason just happened to finish. Just happened to have it here on the bench today. Basically the same pump, and this is what they look like when we're done with them. This is the whole process, start to finish. Disassembled, every part comes out of the housing. The housings are cleaned inside and out between parts washing and media blasting. After that process done, they're blown clean, and then we start going through and replacing all the consumables. And by that I mean the rubber diaphragms, the inlet and outlet check valves, the screens for the filter. In this case, there's a glass bowl to the side. Sometimes the glass bowl is on the bottom. Sometimes there's no glass bowl at all. But in this case, glass bowl, there's a cork gasket in there. There's a brass screen to help filter particulate from getting into the carburetor. And then, inside internally, which we'll show you in a moment, there are valves that have like a Bakelite or phenolic washer. They sometimes, over the time between heat and the fuel sitting on them, they get distorted and they don't make a seal anymore. 99% of the time when we get a pump in here, it's failed because the seals, the valves are no longer holding back the pressure. That's probably number one. Number two is the actual diaphragm that creates the pumping action up and down, dries out, becomes brittle, or if it's a newer pump that's been exposed to newer gas, ethanol gas, the rubber becomes very soft, almost like a wet noodle, and you'll never pump, you'll never build pressure at that point in time.
So ethanol is not our friend.
It's not our friend. So, and Jason kind of can show you some of the bits and pieces and the parts inside these pumps and what the different, what the different components do in here and whatnot. But I'll hand it over to him and he can kind of explain a little bit more.
All right, cool, thanks.
You got it.
So,
All right, Jason, so what do we got going on here? We're going to have a little tutorial?
yeah, so what I did here is, you saw the before, the after. Well, this is the in-between.
Okay.
This one's all disassembled.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, in between. So this one's completely disassembled. The valves have already been taken out. Screws are thrown away. Diaphragm's already gone. So this is what you're left with. And then from here, I take it into the media blaster, clean it all up, and then you get that finished product after I'm done reassembling everything up. These are a couple of different valves. This smaller valve, it's a 3/4 inch valve. Certain pumps take that. This one in particular takes the 1-inch valve. Some pumps like the 55 to 57 Thunderbird, you'll have 2 of these in the vacuum section, 2 of these in the fuel section, then 2 of these also in the regular housing. And so it takes like 6 valves.
Okay.
Whereas other pumps like these just take 2, and that's it.
So this is an education for me too, because I've never had one apart. I just go to Napa and buy one and bolt it on. But
Right. And
there's, I guess, a lot of cases with old cars that you just can't do that.
no, and the quality of the old pumps are way better. Using the original pump is definitely the way to go. We stamp our own diaphragms out, and then I reassemble it with the original pin, Now, if the pin is damaged, you're like, sometimes they come in and, yep, it's not going to work anymore. So I will replace it. You know, I inspect the entire pump and all the pieces before I reassemble. And that's pretty much it, you know.
Let's go check that out then.
Yeah, so we got this over here. Here we have all different types of diaphragm dies. So all different pumps. There's so many. This is the most popular. Pretty much 80% of the pumps use that die right there.
And that's convenient.
Exactly. It makes it very nice. So we just do that. Slip it up in here. Put a little weight behind it. And there we go.
Ta-da.
Nice new diaphragm, ethanol safe. It works on all the new gas. It doesn't, you know, get all hard or deteriorate or wrinkle or anything.
Yeah, we got some of those over there.
Yes, we do.
On the shelf. Let's go take a look at those.
Absolutely.
So there's a reason why, folks, you don't say, oh, I don't need it rebuilt. I've got an NOS pump.
Yeah, you may get something like that. I mean, you know, if it's gotten any gas, that, you know, it doesn't even have to have gas run through it. It just...
Yeah, brittle. Because they're 30, 40, 50 years old sometimes.
Exactly. So, you know, like I said, this new stuff, way better. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I got.
So how's it go together?
So,
Is that one's ready to go together?
it's not. I gotta run it through the media blaster.
Oh, okay.
But you know what we do is we would put the diaphragm on there. We'll pretend like there's a pin. You know, and then you reline it up. So we stake it with a little dot. So that way I know exactly, you know, and where it goes.
So it's clocked right.
It's right. So it's clocked correctly. Because what we do is we stake it right at the arm. That way we know. Some people will put dot on each side. Everybody, you know, it's all different. And that's pretty much what'll happen. After we run it through the media blaster, we'll clean it up, put all new parts in it, new valves, back together it goes, and then you get that final product.
You'll get that out of it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So these are all the same.
Correct. These are all the same.
Okay.
So it worked out kind of nice that they were here to be able to show you the same pump in all its different stages.
So what are some of the weirdest ones you've done?
Weirdest.
No, I'm putting you on the spot. There's a bench full of weird ones.
We got, well, that one's not completely back together, but this one's different. You know, it doesn't run off of an arm like a lot of these. It just pushes in like that. There's that one. There's a couple. There's not a lot. Majority of them are all pretty basic. I'm just trying to think if I have any over there now. Most of them are pretty basic. They have it, you know, they're same components where it's just valve, rocker arm, boom, pumps fuel.
Cool. What do you do the most of?
55 to 57 Thunderbird.
Really?
Absolutely. I have a whole shelf of them up there. And we've sold numerous ones throughout the past year, and but that is definitely by far the most popular pump that we rebuild.
Okay.
That, and then it would be the 60s Corvette pumps. Those two pumps seem to be our most popular.
The cars are still being restored.
Yep.
Well, even if they've been restored and they get old,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's a wear item.
It absolutely is. Job security.
And I know those Corvette guys because I'm one of them. That matching numbers. It's got to be the original one. So.
Yep, I get that a lot. Like, oh, it's got to have this. I'm like, okay, you know, but it is what it is. We try to accommodate it as best we can.
All right. Well, thanks a lot,
You're very
and
welcome.
happy pumping.
Thank you.
All right. So this is the water pump side of the bench.
Yep.
And Pat's not in today, so Parker's going to stand in and give us a little brief overview of what happens with water pumps.
So everything we do in this machine shop is fuel and water pump only. That's all we do in this machine shop is just rebuild fuel and water pumps. So that's why it's kind of funny when you say this half of the bench, because really that side of the bench is fuel pump rebuilding and this side of the bench is water pump building. And everything in this room has to do something with fuel and water pumps. So it doesn't look like much, but there's a lot. And there's a lot that goes into this. So I'll try to give you a quick overview. Pretty much most post-war American cars have either what they call a unitized seal or a carbon seal. And just for example, we just got this Pontiac pump. We haven't even taken this has just been checked in, hasn't been taken apart or other than just a visual inspection.
Oh, so it gets a tag on it.
It gets a tag on it because they do go through a parts washer and a sandblaster, and these brass tags, they're just numbered on them, will withstand the media blasting
Sure.
and the parts washing.
So that's how you assure that someone getting their
We don't mix up parts.
date-coded, original numbers matching.
And that's another good point. I should bring that up. We never do multiple pumps at the same time. You know, when we start on a pump, we usually start to finish. If we find we're missing bearings or with something that we don't have in stock, I will move on to something else and put that pump aside. But for the most part, we try not to mix and match. Like I've had a couple times where guys will send in 3 or 4 of the same pump. Maybe they're a shop, maybe they've got 3 or 4 of that particular kind of car. We still generally will just do one at a time, so as to not mix and match the parts. Anyways.
Okay.
Good
point.
Aside from that,
Yep.
so just by way of example, here's a late 60s, early 70s Pontiac V8 water pump. Now, you can't tell because it's all together still, but inside the housing here, if you can visualize, that's the bearing. There's the nose of it sticking out right there, through the hub, down into the body, and then sticking out of the impeller at the bottom there. This is the bearing that's inside this water pump.
Okay.
It's a sealed bearing. You can see there's no open-faced rollers, and it spins independently. The shaft, it's hard to probably catch on camera, but this shaft
Right.
spins independently of the bearing body. Inside the pump housing, this is what we call a unitized seal. So this seal, it's hard to show you right here. Let me see. There we go. Ironically, we have another one right here. This is the seal. This is an earlier version. This is the later model version. But this seal gets pressed into the cast iron inside here, and when you press the shaft through the seal, it's a press fit. It's about less than a thousandths clearance. Mm-hmm. It actually presses into this part, and this part spins independently of this part, which is pressed into the casting. So that's how your bearing and shaft, or your bearing and seal housing, are stationary in the pump, but the shaft is allowed to rotate because it's supported by the bearing here, and it's pressed into this sleeve here. And I don't know if you can catch that, but that actually turns independent of the pressed in part. So that's how your hub and your impeller blade are able to spin, because they're both press fit. Everything's about a 1,000th tolerance.
And is that what fails and causes them to leak?
The seals fail because what it is in between here, this white ring is a piece of ceramic. So ceramic is very hard, but also very brittle. If you drop it or shock it, or I've seen guys where they take a pump and they whack the end of the bearing here, with a hammer because they're trying to get something on or off the engine. That's going to break. That is a piece of ceramic. That's all it is. It's very brittle. So
Oops.
a shock to a water pump that has this type of seal is going to crack this, and you're going to have premature failure. Once this ceramic seal, which rides on a piece of black underneath there, it's a piece of carbon. Once that breaks, all bets are off. The pump starts leaking. And all water pumps of this style have what they call a weep hole. And you guys have probably seen this little hole in the water pumps on your car, whether it's a Chevy, a Ford, it doesn't matter. They have a weep hole. And the weep hole is designed so that when the seal fails, the water will leak out here and indicate to you there is a failure. So if you ever see, like this one, you can see there's some staining going on here. So we know this seal is bad. We don't even, once we get in there, we'll be able to tell even more, but we already know this seal is bad. There's a sign of weeping here out of the weep hole. So that's what that hole on all these pumps are there for,
It did its job.
There it is there, some of them are oval shaped like this one, different size weep holes. So every pump has a weep hole. So that's the most common seal that we use right here, the unitized seal. Most of the pumps use this. You go back a few more years into the late 30s, 40s, and early 50s, and we have what's called the carbon seal. So kind of the same principle, except that you would need an impeller. So again, the later seal, which is the carbon bellows seal here, these would actually fit into a cartridge in the water pump's impeller. And you would glue the seal into the base of the impeller, and these ears are just a little too fat. I'd have to shave these down a little bit. But you're supposed to be able to push the seal right down in there and have it spring loaded. And this part of the seal, this carbon part here, is just the old version of this little white ring right here. And what you would have to do is, on the inside of the pump casting, there would be a flat piece of cast iron in place of where this seal is, and this would ride against that surface. And what we have to do is machine that surface smooth so that this has a perfectly true and flat surface to ride against, and that's where we use the Bridgeport to surface the insides of the pump.
So you say Bridgeport, now that's over on the other wall. That's a pretty serious piece of equipment over there.
Yep, we do use the Bridgeport and the lathe on pretty much all these rebuilds.
I'm gonna take a walk over.
Absolutely.
A jet. Yeah, that's not your bench top Harbor Freight unit.
Ironically, on the lathe here, I don't know if Jason told you much, but when he takes the water pump diaphragm posts apart, most of the work is done right here. So we're not using much of the rest of this table for many fuel pump or water pump projects. Most of the work is done right here within the first 4 inches of the collet. But it's an invaluable tool. You need it to do it right.
Because the shafts wear and
That's right.
stuff like that. Cool.
So, and then the last seal that I want to talk about real quick was on the earlier pumps prior to this carbon seal pump is the good old-fashioned packing pumps. And if you look here on this Packard pump here, this is the packing nut. So just like if you ever saw a boat, inboard boat that has a shaft that comes through the hull, there's a packing nut. Well, this is the same thing. This impeller shaft runs all the way down and turns the impeller right here. You know, it's inside here.
Okay.
And under this nut, you would actually take rope packing and you'd wrap it around the shaft. You never loop it like this. You would cut the rings to fit the shaft. So if this ring had to be this long, I would cut it right there and then put the end and pack it in there. Usually anywhere from 2 to 4 rings of rope packing will be sufficient enough to get the nut started. And you can feel the resistance as you start the nut. You always start it by hand. Make sure you're threaded on properly. And then you get it snug. You bring it in a couple draws with the wrench. Make sure you can still turn your shaft smoothly. And then that's how the water stays on this side, in the engine block side of the water pump, and not leak out the shaft. On this style pump, however, though, as time goes on, you will see water start to seep out of the shaft, and all you have to simply do is just tighten your packing nut a little bit more.
So what year Packard pump is that?
This would be this would be 29 and older.
Okay.
They all used a variation of this depending on the pulley for whatever engine it was.
Because I remember you telling me about the 840 has this similar...
It does. They also have a packing nut. Actually, Packard
needs to be snugged a little bit.
Every now and again, you have to snug them up.
We'll
now,
get to that later.
when you run out of threads, pretty much game over. Your rope is shot, and probably at that point in time, you've not you, but somebody. A lot of times these pumps have never been apart. The shafts are then scored to the point where you cannot put fresh packing in there anymore. You need to replace the shaft.
Okay.
The original rope packing back in the day was impregnated with a high quantity of graphite. Graphite is abrasive, so it ruins the shafts. This modern rope packing that we use is impregnated with Teflon, so it's not as aggressive. So if we have to do a new shaft and we put our rope packing in there, your shaft's going to last longer than you, me, and everybody combined. So that works. Those are the 3 types of seals: the unitized seal, the carbon seal, and the rope packing seal for the water pumps. Again, this rope packing kind of was in existence from the turn of the century to about the mid to late 30s on to about the early 50s. You said the carbon seal and bellow combination. And then they went to the unitized seal in the mid to late 50s, pretty much up to present day. We even still occasionally will get a modern pump in from time to time. You know, I say modern, 80s or 90s, that still uses this type of seal. This seal design really hasn't changed in the last 60 years. So those are kind of the 3... and then, of course, those are the 3 types of seals for these pumps. And then like I said before, there's the sealed bearing pumps that have the shafts that are integrated directly into the bearing. And then on these earlier pumps, like for example, these 2 pumps are both for a 12-cylinder Packard. The packing nut goes down in here, just as you can see on this one. and you can see the shaft passes all the way through and out the top. But in this hollow cavity right here, which this one is still full, there's actually 2 roller bearings in there, almost look like axle bearings, that support the shaft. So all the support of the fan and the fan belt and everything is out here, way out here in the front of the water pump.
Wow.
And these 2 bearings that are in here, and this cavity is filled with grease or heavyweight oil, is doing all the work of holding all the weight of the fan. So what happens is sometimes somebody will over tighten their fan belt and prematurely wear out these bearings.
Oh.
So now you have a problem where you've got a wobbly impeller shaft. You may create a leak because your rope packing can't seal to a wobbly impeller shaft, and you've got wiped out bearings. So when we get a pump like that in, that's always something we look for as well, is to make sure the bearings are tight. Regardless of how the bearings feel, we always replace them, because it's a peace of mind for us and for the end user to know that the bearings are brand new and there's not going to be any problems and the pump's going to turn freely. And again, we use sealed bearings anywhere we can. It's just a better, insurance for us to know that there's a sealed bearing in there. We don't have to, if somebody forgets to grease their water pump in the spring, it's not a big deal. It's a sealed bearing.
Right.
So
Okay.
So there is still the conventional bearing type pumps like this, where you have to slide the bearings on just like an axle shaft in your car. And then there's the more modern, I'll call it modern, even though it's been around for 60, 70 years, shaft through bearing sealed unit, which a lot of these pumps use here. And they're readily available. You can still find these if you look hard enough.
Oh, cool.
So
again, folks, I'll leave a link to their website in the description.
And
the website has their phone number on it. Give them a call, and if you do give them a call and you do need something, make sure you let them know you saw the video here, so they know where the referral comes from.
And so every pump that we do, once we're done with this part of it, and I apologize, a little too much technical here, the pump gets washed, media blasted, cleaned, and then reassembled with all new parts. And whether it needs machining on the Bridgeport or truing up of a impeller or a hub on the lathe, it goes back together, and then everything leaves here in a, I call it a rebuilder's cast gray finish, so that, because cast iron, most of these pumps are cast iron, we do see aluminum as well, and in the early stuff you see cast brass. But all these cast iron pumps, if you know anything about cast iron, if you media blast a piece of cast iron and leave it outside on your shop bench, by the next day it might have a little layer of surface rust on it already. Cast iron is very, very prone to surface rusting, so we always paint every one of our pumps in a gray primer. It's just a cast blast, same primer you use on an engine block. So the end user can then top coat it, whatever their engine color choice may be. And if they're trying to restore their car, they can send it off to the paint and body shop and have them do their
Paint it
work
all
as
at
well.
once so it matches.
Exactly. And then, as Mark probably showed in the beginning, we do provide all of our pumps with a new gasket. So we do have mounting gaskets for just about every water pump that comes in our door, and anything that doesn't, we have templates, and we can hand cut our gaskets as well.
Because you can't find them at the Napa store either.
That's right. That's right. Try finding a water pump gasket for your 32 Chevy. But that's it. Yeah. And then, like I say, when they leave here, they are, well, I can back you up here. These are some of our completed pumps here on the bench here. A bunch of Cadillacs, Pontiac, Ford down there, and then we have completed fuel pumps on the other side as well. These are the finishes they look. So they look clean, they look presentable, and they're ready to go. We also surface all the gasket mounting areas so that you get a tight seal when you mount your pump to your car to prevent leaking from the new gaskets.
Okay.
And I always encourage folks, when they do mount a fuel or a water pump, use a little bit of high tack or some other gasket product that'll help seal your gasket to your engine block, because we can only do so much with the pump that we have of yours. But if your engine block has a little nick or a little gouge from something, some damage or something at some point in time, I always recommend just a little bit of gasket shellac on the gasket to help not only hold it in place while you get the bolts started, but also maybe take care of a little imperfection that you may not see with the naked eye.
Cool. So Jason was saying that you've got a good stock of fuel pumps if people need them. Do you
Yep.
have a stock of water pumps kicking around as
We
well?
do. We do. Obviously, water pumps come in much bigger sizes, so not as many water pumps, although it feels like it sometimes. But we do. We do have, literally thousands of fuel and water pump cores in our back storage area. And again, if it's something that somebody needs, maybe they want to spare because they're going to be on a tour, just ask us. We may have it.
Or they just don't have one.
Or they just don't have one. Yeah. And it always surprises me what sometimes it comes in spurts. You know, sometimes you may not have anybody ask about a certain brand for 6 months, 10 months, and all of a sudden you get 2 people in a row in the same week that ask for something, and it's the same darn thing. So it always amazes me, but it's always worth an ask and see what we have, because we do constantly find more cores and add it to our collection. So, you know, you never know until you ask.
There you go.
So.
All right, Parker, thanks for the time, and enjoyed the tour, and I learned something. I try to learn something every day. So, all right, folks, again, check out their website. If you need them, give them a shout, and let them know you saw us here.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. All right, folks, that's all for today out at AG Arthur Gould Rebuilders. And hope you learned something. I sure did. If you liked the video and you haven't done so already, do me a favor, click the like, hit the subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because there's more cool stuff to come. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. It's coming on springtime, folks. Get your cars ready. Send your water pump and your fuel pump out to be fixed, and you'll have something ready to go. Get out there and get cruising so we can let's go car cruising. So, if you enjoyed this video, watch this one for more stuff which goes on in the back of the shop. Parker's Packards. Cool stuff going on there. And if you like that one, leave a comment. Say, hey, we want to see more Packards, and maybe I'll get another invite out to come check that one out. Thanks again. Check this one out.